was a tale of two speeches. He started off recounting his version of the harrowing events from this weekend, but he quickly shifted into rally mode. So this promise of a unifying speech, there were some lines that were aimed at being unifying, but the speech as a whole really felt like a Trump rally speech. Within that, we could give a little bit of context to some of what you just heard from the former president. He repeated debunked claims of election interference, talked about crime being rampant in American cities. The reality there, crime is at a 50-year low, even though a lot of folks wouldn't say that they feel that. He talked about the invasion at the southern border, something that we hear at a lot of his rallies. If you look at the facts, and if you look at the crowd, they obviously ate all of this up. The question becomes, does it appeal to moderates? Does it appeal to independents? The reality is there was a lot of debate over getting a bipartisan border deal done. Former President Trump opposed that.
Well,
so it's complicated.
He challenged Democrats in the name of unity. He challenged Democrats to drop investigations. I think he called them the witch hunts, but that was his challenge to Democrats.
That's right. And a lot of people will hear that, certainly in this room, and the crowd went wild. And the question becomes where we started the conversation tonight, which is all the people who are tuning in, who may have been skeptical of Donald Trump, who may have wanted to hear what he had to say tonight. Will that appeal to them? I think that remains the only
let's
question.
just call it what it is. It is after midnight. It is Friday morning. The speech started on Thursday night, and officially it is the longest convention speech ever given by a lot. 93 minutes, by the way. The two record holders before also both given by Trump, 76 minutes and 70 minutes, respectively. We're seeing the balloons drop, the family on the stage, those iconic convention moments. By and large, this Republican convention trying to present a different side to Donald Trump, but this Donald Trump we saw tonight was the vintage thing.
This is who he has been for the past 8 years, and while he nodded at the top to saying he wanted to represent all of America, it turns out that comes with a catch. You heard him decry what he called partisan witch hunts against him. He talked about accusing Democrats of weaponizing the Justice Department, insisting he's not a threat to democracy. Democrats have cast him as that. They talk about his incitement, as they see it, of an insurrection for undermining confidence in the security of the election with his election fraud lies. In the moments after the assassination attempt against him in Butler, Pennsylvania, you heard calls from Republicans for the rhetoric to be toned down, but here's Donald Trump talking about crazy Nancy Pelosi, cheating on elections, using COVID to cheat, and more. He may say he wants unity, but he wants unity on his terms only here. That is clear from the speech.
I think what was different is the tone. He was, you almost might want to call it low energy at points, but he was clearly trying to shift the tone downward in terms of not as much yelling.
The tone was subdued. Yeah. The rhetoric was not. Let's go to our senior national correspondent, Tom Yamas, on the floor as the balloons drop and this convention comes to a close. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Savannah. Yeah, this is the moment why people come to conventions, right, to feel that balloon drop. Listen, I was right here watching with all of the delegates, all the people on the convention floor, inside this arena here. At the beginning, he had them hanging on every single word. They were listening to the entire story of that assassination attempt. They were following along. They were sort of enthralled into what he was saying. It was a long speech, as you have said. It was the longest, I think, ever of any convention of modern history. And there were at times people had to sit back down. But for the most part, I started asking people, what'd you think of the speech? They said they liked the speech. People acknowledged it was very long. Some people fell asleep that were around us. And again, people sat down. But there were people, a lot of people that stood up the entire time, the full 90 minutes, watching him every step of the way, hanging on every word, shooting cell phone videos, shooting selfies, so excited. And again, he really had them mesmerized that first part of the speech. And by the end, he brought it home to people. You know, I'd say in the last 10 minutes or so, people started getting back excited about what was happening. And just behind us, you can see the balloons are falling. They're popping. People are taking their selfies. They're enjoying their time here in Milwaukee. And the people here, at least, have earned it. They stayed waiting a long time during that speech for this moment. I'm going to send it back to you guys upstairs in the convention hall.
Yeah, Tom, thanks very much. We're looking, if you look on the stage, the entire Trump family minus Barron Trump on that platform are taking in this moment, watching the balloons fall and greeting the crowd that they hope will help steer them to victory in November.
Let's go to Garrett Hake. He has a different vantage point on the floor. Garrett, how did the speech go over where you were sitting?
Yeah, well, Savannah, we're waist deep in balloons now. It felt like it's kind of an effort to manufacture a bit of energy that was lacking at the second half of that speech. The first half, I saw a lot of wet eyes. The second half, I saw some closed eyes in the section that I'm in right now. I'm with Brooke. Brooke from North Carolina here. You were enraptured in the first part of the speech. Tell me what you thought about hearing this from Donald Trump tonight.
Well, I mean, honestly, it was the most amazing speech I've heard from him. He's subdued now after last week. I really believe there's been a transformation. I think the Spirit of the living God is on him, and the people here feel that. Franklin Graham came out and gave an incredible prayer for him and prayer for our nation, which is exactly what we need. We need fundamental restoration in America, and that's what Donald Trump will provide.
Do you think this version of Donald Trump will convince your friends and neighbors back in North Carolina who aren't sold on him right now?
I think so. You know what? I see North Carolina that we will hand it to Donald Trump handily. And I think other states, you will be surprised to see even some very deep blue states are going to go for Donald Trump because you know why? Their budgets have been hurting. They know that they have been losing jobs to what's been coming over at our border. The tsunami over our border has been affecting not just the Hispanic and the Black community, but every community in the United States. And Americans are tired of that. We're tired of watching our children be killed by fentanyl. We're tired of seeing our jobs go away to illegals. And we're tired of the crime on our streets.
Brooke, you're one of several people I've talked to, maybe every delegate I've talked to has talked about the idea of basically seeing God's hand on Donald Trump tonight. He talked about that chart and the idea that turning his head saved his life. Is that the big takeaway for you from this convention, from this last week in our politics?
Absolutely, Garrett. This last week has been the most incredible transformation, I think, on him and on the people around him, his loved ones, his family, the people who serve in Senate and the House. My prayer is that, listen, if you remember from 2012, the DNC booed God. We have been praising God at the Republican Party. At this party all week long, we have been praising the name of Jesus Christ, and that does not happen at the Democrat National.
All right, Brooke, I got to throw it back upstairs. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. And Lester, Savannah, I think that's been a
Garrett, thanks very much. As we watch the Trump family continue to take in this moment, God bless America. God bless America, playing in the arena here. Before we go, let's get some final thoughts. Hallie?
Well, looking at this, the Trump family on stage here, coming out in what is, in many ways, the starting point of the last stretch of the campaign. I have to think about what the Democratic convention will look like in just about a month from now, not to take away anything from tonight and the speech that former President Trump delivered to an audience that really felt tonight as true believers. This is his party. This is his stage. He made that clear. But what is also clear is that those calls for unity that he suggested continue to have that catch.
Well, the question is, the party faithful is united. The Republican base is ready to go. Is this going to be one of those elections that's about exciting your base and turning them out, or is this going to be an election about persuading those middle-of-the-road voters? And need we not mention that the Democratic Party right now, the question of who will be on the ballot is very much an open question right now.
That's right. I do think it's going to be about winning over the small sliver, maybe 10% of gettable voters. And one thing that struck me, you didn't hear him really talk about President Biden. He mentioned his name once. What's notable about that, we do not know if President Biden will be at the top of the ticket. And I think that was strategic to some extent. You are seeing them shift into a campaign against the administration writ large, whether it's Kamala Harris or another Democrat who winds up being at the top of the ticket if he does drop out.
When I spoke to President Biden earlier this week, I asked him if the assassination attempt will drive the trajectory of this election. He wasn't sure, but I think watching this and watching how it's woven into the speech, I think very clear.
No doubt it's looming over everything.
That concludes our special coverage of this year's Republican National Convention.
We'll have much more ahead on our streaming network, NBC News Now, online at NBCnews.com. And don't forget us at the Today Show. I would say tomorrow morning, but it's this morning.